Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today we have Heather with us, and Heather is a gut brain health coach from Vancouver who has helped heal from concussions, SIBO, gut condition, and mold toxicity, and believes that everyone can heal given the right conditions and mindset. As an athlete and spiritual data scientist, when she's not working, you can find her out hiking in the mountains and meditating under the stars. She has spent many hours doing somatic therapy, meditation, and breath work, and has found profound benefits in healing her nervous system and integrates this into her work with clients. She has a BS in integrated science, biochemistry, and neuroscience, is a certified gut health practitioner, and partners with microbiome labs, which offer spore-based probiotics and functional microbiome testing. Heather, I am so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And this is such a great topic. I know when we talked, we were like, okay, what can we focus on? Should we talk about mold? Should we talk about microbiome? Should we talk more about gut healing? And honestly, I think what would be really great for us in this segment is to talk a little about all of it. Reason being, I've had quite a few ladies in the network who have called me specifically like, hey, I'm having these issues with chronic constipation. I just had someone call me a couple of days ago. She had actually went to out of town with some family and she found herself super sick. She
Mm.
couldn't keep anything down. She was vomiting, diarrhea. And she said, I have an appointment scheduled with a GI specialist next month. What do I do in the meantime? I can't keep anything down. What's happening? So I feel like we could talk about that, like gut in a nutshell, microbiome, but then also with the mold piece, I think this is so important too, because it's one of those hidden things. It's like you don't really know that you're suffering from it until it's too late. So I think
Mhm.
this will be yeah, we're just going to get into it.
Sorry, yeah, I had to agree.
Yeah.
It's one of those secret, silent, but deadly, not quite deadly, I shouldn't say that, but quite severe conditions. Yeah.
Exactly. So for us to start off, I would love for you to just share honestly your experience with battling SIBO, what that looked like for you, um, and how that led to what you're currently doing now.
Yeah, definitely. So my journey was interesting in that it was kind of a series of different conditions that were labeled very different things, but they all kind of had underlying connections and threads, like most chronic health issues. So I had a concussion in 2017. And that was kind of like the big life shaking moment of like, who am I? I can't even think or do math or like get out of bed and go for a walk. Like I was so exhausted. Um, so that was a 5 month recovery. So I can talk a lot about concussion as well. Saw 11 different practitioners, realized that meditation was going to be a huge part of my healing journey, and really dove into that, along with all the nutrition and supplements, etc., and red light therapy. I'm just going to name a few of the top ones there. And then a few years later, I had a mold issue I was living in a moldy basement in Vancouver, which is pretty classic. Very wet, moist, humid, kind of dark, damp environment, which is where mold likes to thrive. Um, and that was quite debilitating, and it took me a while to figure it out. I was, trying to go to work, but showing up and like telling my boss, like, I don't know what's happening. I have so much brain fog. Like, I can barely focus for more than a few hours. And I was like literally napping in the office. And at one point, we kind of just like had a team meeting and had to figure it out. And it was a holistic health app that we were working on. So, we were all kind of in that zone. And we kind of put the pieces together like, okay, you've been sick for like 3 weeks. Like, I thought I just had like a really bad flu. Um, but I was also like having shortness of breath, which was really weird, like constant or chronic shortness of breath. which is a big indicator of mold, because, the primary way that people can get mold toxicity is through inhalation. Of course, there's moldy foods that can have an influence, but like primarily it's like breathing it in. So, yeah, symptoms were a lot of brain fog, fatigue, and then the weird one, which was kind of like should have been the dead giveaway, was tingly sensations in my feet and fingers. It was like pins and needles, like someone was poking me just randomly. That would be like little bursts, almost like static electricity, I would describe it. And so we were all having this team meeting and we kind of put together the pieces of like, oh, wait, your Halloween costume smelled moldy. Like maybe you have like a mold issue. I was like, this makes so much sense. And it all kind of clicked. And yeah, so then I went through a lot of research and self-healing, and every doctor I went to just totally dismissed me and was like, that's not a thing. Like, like Western medicine, they're not really trained in that area. So luckily, my naturopath was able to support me, and I told her like, these are my symptoms. This is what I want to do to treat it, and she was like, yeah, that's a great plan. Like she added a few more things, of course, and sort of guided me along my healing path. But yeah, that was a solid, I would say, like 4-month recovery. Um, maybe I'm still healing from it. Who knows? I think it can be quite difficult to eradicate fully, but like most of my symptoms, actually, no, all of my symptoms are gone. It's just a matter of, keeping a mold-free lifestyle because honestly, like it comes up so often. You can smell it. You walk into like an old camper. Um, it smells like maybe like a musty grandma's basement. That is a dead giveaway. I run away. Um, and then I'll wrap this up in a second here. The last thing that happened to me on my health journey, which kind of ties us all back together, was SIBO. So it was not too long after the mold. I always have to do this math. I think it was around 5 months later that I was diagnosed with SIBO. So, like, in retrospect, I should have put those pieces together a little more quickly. But hopefully, this is enlightening for people listening. Like, oh, okay, so maybe there's a link between, I mean, definitely concussion and SIBO, but now we're also seeing links between molds and SIBO. And there's also like that nervous system piece that will, obviously play a role in all of that. But yeah, SIBO, which I am not sure if everyone's familiar, it's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it was pretty painful, bloating, especially after certain foods, sometimes like brain fog after certain foods, and bowel changes. So, kind of a mixture of constipation and diarrhea. And just not fun. Like, it was also emotionally challenging to be like, okay, well, I can't eat the foods that I'm enjoying. Like, why should I go out and have a meal with friends if I'm just going to be in pain and having to run to the bathroom? Like I hear this a lot too. It's very challenging in that regard. So yeah, that was a whole journey as well. And I've healed myself through mostly like supplements and eating strategies and calming my nervous system. So I have a whole bunch more I could share, but that's kind of in a nutshell my healing journey that I help clients with now as well.
Well, oh my gosh, you've gone through so much in such a short period of time. And it's so interesting that they were all kind of like 5 months after each other. I don't know if that was like a
Yeah.
coincidence,
Well,
but
yeah, there was like I guess a 2-year gap between the concussion and the moldy basement. But yeah,
okay.
pretty back to back, I would say.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love, and I know you didn't love it going through it, but you didn't take no for an answer and you didn't back down. It was just like, no, these are the things that are happening and I'm going to figure it out. And I think one of the biggest things I want just our listeners to take away from this is no one's going to advocate for you the way that you advocate for you. And when it comes to just how we take care of ourselves, how we love ourselves unconditionally, how we're listening to what our bodies are sharing with us. And what I mean by listening, I mean in your case, it was like, oh, okay, I'm having brain fog or I can't focus. Like that's you listening to your body. I think it's so important and just everyone really feeling empowered because again, no one's going to speak for you the way that you speak for you. And you did it in such a way where you didn't just focus on yourself, but now these are symptoms or these are things that even if this were to come up with children or your partner, like they're coming to you and they're asking these questions to you. And now you become the source when it comes to just the overall nutrition, overall health. And now you're also helping your community and you're now it's like more of a global thing. And you realize that there's purpose in this. And even though you went through those things, like there's so much purpose that has come out of it. And you're really healing and helping other people along their journey too. So I wanted to just thank you for that. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And
Thank you. Yeah.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And you know, this is so crazy. So just like in your case as well, like my gut issues was through IBS, yours was through SIBO. I've had people call in who've had chronic constipation, and I would love for you to just talk a little bit more about the concerns with SIBO and why it's so important to get help immediately when you see these concerns. And I'm sharing this because there was a person that I had talked to, and this was just a couple weeks ago, and she had said, I think I might have SIBO.
Mm,
And she said, yeah, I went to a naturopathic doctor, had a consultation. And through that consultation, she had said that it might be SIBO. I may have been misdiagnosed for chronic constipation. And when she told me this, I said, well, what are your symptoms? And based on, like I was saying, based on her symptoms, it seemed like she had a mixture of sometimes it was diarrhea, sometimes it was constipation. Um, Sometimes she couldn't keep things down. And I'm like, for me, it sounds like in this moment you may have a virus, but it may be
mm,
something that you should seek more attention on, like have a food journal, have a better idea of like what's making you feel good and what isn't. And one of the things she asked me, she said, okay, when I get off of this trip, while I'm on the trip, what do I eat? But then when I get off of the trip, how do I continue this food journey? And I shared with her, I said, one of the greatest things about this experience is you don't have to go through it alone. Like
mm,
it was an emotional battle for me. It was an emotional battle for you. And that's because we didn't have anyone in our corner to like help guide us, through this path. And the amazing part of our community is we've all gone through these experiences and you're not alone. So I would just love for you to share like how would someone know that they have SIBO even if they haven't necessarily got the testing yet? What does that testing look like? And then what would you recommend that they do right away?
yeah. Oh, great question. Interestingly, just fun fact first before I get into that is that we're starting to learn more that perhaps SIBO is actually the root cause of IBS. To be fair, like IBS is kind of just a name that describes its symptoms, like inflammatory bowel syndrome. Yes, your bowel is inflamed, but why? Um, so one of the root causes, which some studies say is around 68% of patients, is actually due to SIBO, and we're still learning more about like what actually causes SIBO, and it's complex, multifactorial, environmental, food, stress, toxins, infections, like we were saying. Um, so it can be a little tricky to really find that root cause, which is why I'm a big proponent of testing. Um, so I do stool testing, and I find that can be very insightful for figuring out, like, okay, what bacterial populations are overgrown, which ones are missing, which infections might there be in terms of stool testing. That's one avenue you can go. We are seeing for SIBO though, like the best test you can do to really diagnose it is a breath test. So you can order those online. There's a few sites where you can like go direct to the lab, or you can just, order through naturopath. Um, but essentially, they send you a bunch of test tubes. You take a glucose or lactulose solution after like an overnight fast, and then you blow into the test tubes over the course of several hours, and then you send those back off to the lab, and they'll measure like how much hydrogen and methane and hydrogen sulfide gas is being produced in those samples. And based on that, you can kind of see, okay, do you have hydrogen sulfide predominant SIBO or methane? And then use treatment protocols from there. Usually it's a combination of antibiotics, which, you want to be careful with, of course. I'm a bigger fan of herbal antimicrobials rather than like the hardcore antibiotics. And the research is showing that they're equally, if not more effective. Maybe they take a little bit longer to work, but I find like they're more synergistic and, work with supporting your microbiome rather than just like annihilating it. Um, Pros and cons, but um, that was kind of the main thing. I can't remember what should they do next. Yeah, so breath testing. There's also I will mention this really cool at-home device. It's called the Air Marble. Um, I have one myself. It's like a little pocket device you can carry around and breathe into, and it will send the information to your phone and tell you like how much hydrogen. I think they only do hydrogen and methane right now, is in your breath sample. So it's really cool. Like you can use it after a meal to see maybe like which foods are causing a spike in those gas production, because that's essentially what causes the bloating. Okay, so I'm just going to dig into this because this is super fascinating. Um, the reason that we have so much bloating in SIBO is because of that bacterial overgrowth. We know when the bacteria feed on the excess fibers that are kind of sitting in your gut, maybe there's slow motility or low stomach acid. So the food is kind of sitting there being over fermented. And of course, when the bacteria eat, they produce gas, like the gases I was mentioning, and that brings water into the intestines as well to kind of flush it out, which only increases the bloating. Um, and some people are super sensitive to that bloating, and that's why, only some people who even test positive on the breath test will actually report pain, and some others are like, no, I'm good. But it's like, are you sure? Like, that's why there's so much controversy around SIBO, and depending who you talk to. And we're learning more and more like, okay, why are some people so sensitive to like just minor amounts of bloating? And it interestingly circles back to mold. I recently had my mind blown when I was reading this book by Neil Nathan, Mold Toxicity. I can link the full title because I think everyone should read it. It has a bit longer of a title. But anywho, what I was trying to say, this is the mic drop moment. So when you have mold toxicity, that can sort of create a situation where you have a lot of inflammation and your hormones get out of whack, including your endorphins. And so we know like our endorphins help us feel relief from pain. So if we're not producing enough endorphins, we're going to be hypersensitive to small amounts of pain, right? And so now we're sort of putting the pieces together, like maybe that mold toxicity or other forms of toxicity are causing this hypersensitivity in the first place. And while we know that like nervous system work, like there's this app called Nerva. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a huge hugely popular in like the IBS space for maybe it's just I get ads for it all the time. But I tried it out. It's great. It's a basically a hypnotherapy app for treating IBS. And they've done some clinical studies and shown like 86% improvement um, in users who will go through like the 6 month period. So I find that fascinating on its own. But it's like, okay, so why are some people sensitive in the first place? And now we're I think it's incredibly fascinating that perhaps it's the mold. So yeah, I just wanted to tie all those things together. I may have gone a little off track, but yeah, I'd really want people to understand that and realize like it's not your fault. It's not always a simple matter of like choosing which foods to eat. You need to go into the body and like find the root cause and eradicate it and fight the root cause in a calm and peaceful way, of course.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts when it comes to someone seeking out a GI specialist? Now, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, that I'm thinking.
Okay. So the reason I asked this question is because, to your point, sometimes if there is too much overgrowth or there's essentially too much feces like in your test, it
Mm,
can be difficult for them to even read it to know what the issue is. And a lot of times they tell you what you already know. So it's like, I know I'm constipated. I know I need to change my eating diet, like my eating habits,
mm,
but oh, like, what do I do? What are the steps? What are the procedures here? So for people who are going that GI route, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that you don't need to do it. I just want to make sure that when you are essentially having these conversations with specialists, that you're going in with some type of knowledge of what you've done already so you can give that information to the person that you're talking to. And then if it sounds off or it doesn't sound like it's even in alignment with what it is that you already know about yourself, then probably isn't going to, that person may not be the best fit for you. And I share this because we have so many people in our community who, again, they put themselves in these positions where they want all of these answers and they're trying to externally grab the answers. And it's like, well, the answers are already inside of you. But if you now you have the tools, now you've done some things, you've done your own research, you've gathered that information, and now you can actually go out and see who's going to be the best fit. Because the whole purpose of this is like, we truly want you all to really build your own wellness dream team. And you're not going to be able to know who's supposed to be on your team if you're the main source and you don't even know what's wrong with you and have no idea. You haven't done any internal research to gather that information so your team members can actually help you, because the goal is for you all to get to the same goal. So I would just love to know your thought process on just like, if you're going to a GI specialist, what are your takes on that? And what should you really be looking for when you're communicating with this person and not allowing this person to be like your end all be all?
right. Oh, that is such a good question. I I am a big fan of like getting as many practitioners and health experts on your team. Like you're saying, like we are a community, we've been through this before. Everyone kind of has their own expertise and information they can bring to the table. So I would say, like, use all the resources you have available. Like, if you have insurance, go see a naturopath or even a chiropractor, um, a massage therapist. Like, everyone kind of has um, a specialty that can sort of enhance your treatment progress. But then again, it's also a matter of balancing, like you're saying, like, how does this land for me? Like, what are they saying? Is this really feel true for me? How can I use this information to at least try it out? Or, like, should I focus on this, and is this stressing me out too much? Like kind of sitting with that and like internalizing and keeping what feels good for you is really important as well, and not giving up, because like you said, like you might go to a gastroenterologist and they say, yeah, you have some inflammatory colitis, maybe a little bit of inflammation here, or yeah, it's IBS. Here, go on a low FODMAP diet and come back in 6 months, and we'll see how you're doing. It's like, I don't feel good with that. Like, there's got to be a little more I can do here. And there is. And there are tons of functional practitioners out there that I'm meeting every day almost. And, tips on finding a good practitioner, I would say um, looking, like doing a little bit of research, like, Googling functional medicine practitioners in my area. Um, there's specifically mold trained doctors. If you go on, what is it? I think it's mold. I can't remember the full website URL right now, but I can link it. It's like healingmold.com. Um, just like looking for people that are trained in that area. Like even, if you have gut issues, look for naturopath specializing in gut health. Like, for example, I don't know, like just throwing out ideas. Yeah.
I love that. Well, this has been such a fabulous conversation, Heather. We're so grateful to have you on the show today. As we wrap up, could you just share a little bit about if anyone would like to learn more about you or your work and they would like to connect with you further? What does that process look like?
Yeah, definitely. So I work one on one with clients to heal gut issues related to bloating, IBS, fatigue, brain fog, within that mold, IBS, sometimes even concussion area. And the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. I am Heather_neurofit. So I'm all about the brain and nervous system. And yeah, I do 3-month one-on-one programs. It's very personalized based on the client and their symptoms, but I do offer stool testing as well, which is like highly recommended. If you've been struggling for a while and you really want answers, testing is a good way to go. But there is so much we can do with nutrition, supplements, sort of meal strategy, and of course, nervous system work. As a meditation teacher, I always kind of bring meditation and breath work into every session. So, yeah, I just wanted to make that clear. Like, it's a very holistic approach. And yeah, I'm excited to connect more with your audience and say hello, reach out. I'm always happy to chat.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We're truly grateful for it.